Hello, everyone. At the risk of becoming a OpenAI press release channel, I am going to again give a quick overview of the GPT-5 system card. GPT-5 was just released today. I'm sure a lot of people have been watching videos, reviews, lots of buzz about this. So this video is more going to be going over the system card. Specifically, like I'm interested in LLM training and model training techniques and pushing that frontier. So I'm gonna go over kind of those facets. There's not a whole lot. This isn't like a technical report. It's not really a paper. But there are a few things in here that I thought were kind of interesting, so I wanted to go through those. I guess just to get it out of the way, so I think overall GPT-5 from my usage in the last 5-6 hours is pretty good. I think it's an improvement over 4.0 and 0.3. I didn't use the O series very much because it was very slow, but I'm mostly using it in a text format. I'm not using it as an API to like run an agent or anything. So from my usage through the web, I think it's pretty good, but not like a major leap in performance. And yeah, from a little bit of like testing I did, I kind of still think Claude is a better coding model, but a lot of the supposed performance increase for GPT-5 is coming from the coding. So we'll take a look at the benchmarks that they give. And again, I'm not somebody who reads in the benchmarks too much myself, but they're not completely meaningless. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and dive into it. So GPT-5, most important, I guess, change that they made for GPT-5 is that it's now this what they're calling a unified system. So they used to have this kind of big list of models here, 4.0, 4.0 mini, blah, blah, blah. Now they've replaced all of these with what they're basically have like an auto mode, a single mode that they're calling GPT-5. And that mode has a router that is basically switching switching between the different models. So this router is being trained, presumably, it says basically through ratings and correctness and so on. They talk a little bit later about how they maybe are measuring correctness. But basically they're taking like signals from the user and using some sort of probably, reinforcement learning or Bayesian technique or whatever to decide which models should be selected based off of user signals. So that's kind of interesting. And another thing that's interesting is this like pro model here, GPT-5 Thinking Pro, which is like the most flagship of the flagship, is just this GPT-5 Thinking, which with parallel test time compute. So what this means is that basically they take GPT-5, like when you call GPT-5 Thinking Pro, they just call this GPT-5 Thinking model, let's say 10 times in parallel with the same prompt. And then they use some sort of, best of n selection at the very end. So they basically run your query like, let's say 10 times independently. And then they have one common way to do this is to have like another model look at all 10 outputs and then like decide what the best output was based off of those 10 answers. So that's kind of interesting. That is the only difference from what I read here. This seems to be the only difference between the Thinking and the Thinking Pro mode. So that's pretty cool. All right, and that's a very popular technique, but yeah, just nice to see it called out here. What else? So, right. So sycophancy. So this was an interesting issue with ChatGPT 4. They basically like I think probably many people heard this, but like a few months ago, they had this issue where like most like ChatGPT would be so sycophantic, so like people wouldn't be able to like get good information out of the model, because like it would just like always say that the person is great and like wouldn't challenge them. And especially this was like a problem with if you're like asking, hey, like I'm having this interpersonal issue, like it would always tell you that you're right and stuff like that. So that was a big problem, and also made it hard to like, hey, am I thinking about this correctly? And it like wasn't doing a good job on those sorts of situations. So yeah, it's kind of what they did for that was they don't totally explain, but they basically created some data set where they started with production data, and then I don't know if they're saying they did RLHF, because they say they evaluated model responses, assigned a score, and then used that as a reward signal. Obviously, like if you're using online RL, this reward signal, you can't like assign a score by a human. So either they're doing some sort of like automated scoring seeded off of production data, or they're doing RLHF with production data to fight that. So that's kind of interesting. What else? Yeah, for hallucinations, this is also kind of interesting. So they're for hallucination evaluation. So basically hallucinations are like just not reporting, like saying something not factual, basically from the model. So what they do is what I'm calling here claim-based factuality. Claim-based factuality grading. And basically what that means is, they take, I guess, again, production traffic, they're using several evaluations here, like canned evaluations. One is called long fact and fact score. So they actually have a list of evaluations here that they're doing this with. But for actually evaluating the responses, instead of having like canned like ground truth responses or rubrics or something, they're using LLM based grading, but they're having they do like a two-stage thing where this is kind of in the appendix. They take this prompt, and I'm only pointing this out because it's cool that they give the prompts. So they take this prompt and use it to like list claims in the response from the model, and then they fact check those claims using GPT-3, I guess, with like a browser. So I think that's pretty interesting. I know a lot of people are doing stuff like this, and I'm mainly just pointing this out because it's really cool that they actually give the prompts, and for that I really like that. And I don't recall if they mentioned that they're using this online. I think they don't actually say that they're using this as a training signal, but they are using this with these evals, long fact and fact score. All right. Yeah. All right. So then next thing for deception's been like a big thing with these models. I personally I feel like people are anthropomorphizing these models way too much when they talk about deception, but is what it is. Just to call out here again, focusing on like training techniques and stuff, what they did to kind of try to mitigate deception is that they took like a training data set where they introduced a bunch of tasks that basically can't be completed, and they're checking to like they're giving a reward signal when the model says that they can't do the task. And if the model says it can do the task, then, or like says it completed the task, you know that it was being dishonest. So that's basically their approach there. And there's a bunch of like red teaming, other people, like external teams and stuff, checking for deception and stuff in these in this model, like especially towards the end of this report that I'm not going to go into. But if you're interested in that, there's a lot more in this paper, especially around like red teaming of all sorts, around like biological weapons and attacking cybersecurity systems and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm again gonna mostly skip that. What else? I think there's at least one or two more pieces here. Yeah, so Swebench, I guess, is the next piece. Yeah, so Swebench, really popular benchmark. Swebench Verified is kind of like the subset of Swebench that most people use. Swebench get basically GitHub issues, asking if the model can solve GitHub issues, and yeah, it's become kind of like the standard for like software engineering testing for these models. And yeah, I guess this is the same as Opus 4.1. So, you know, they're claiming basically similar performance. Again, from my like playing around with it only a little bit, I still think Claude is better, but I haven't played with it too much, and it wouldn't shock me if GPT-5 is better in the long term. But yeah, I don't think like it's definitely not like immediately obvious that they've released a better model than Anthropic, or that they're you know, the new king. The one thing to say about GPT-5 though is that it is way cheaper than Opus. So Opus 4.1 is $75 per million tokens output, and GPT-5 is $10 per million token output. Now this is not the thinking model, which is what they're calling out here, but the thinking mini model, for instance, is or actually I'm not sure. I think these models can be queried as a thinking model. So yeah, not totally sure the config and how that's going to work out, because model pricing is not just about per token, it's also about like how many tokens the model creates and stuff. But yeah, still seems like GPT-5 is going to be way cheaper. The other thing that I really like that they're doing is this like OpenAI PRs, and they also have something down here which they called OPQA. So these are like they're making these their own like internal benchmarks based off of issues that they've had in the company. So OpenAI PRs is, I guess, just like general PRs within the company. And they're saying like, all right, these models are approaching like solving 50% of our PRs, you know, whatever that means. But these are like significantly better than, I like looked at the OSS paper the other day, and these are significantly better. I do love this direction of things though. And I wish like more people were doing this and keeping track of like how much these models could do the tasks that people have done themselves, like in the past. 'Cause like, we have these big repository of like things that we do, and we don't really like, you know, collect them for back testing. So I think that's like a really good practice. And then this OPQA is like, I think basically the same thing, but it's like hard problems, things that took, they say, I think took more than a day to do internally. All right. So I think that is, if I recall correctly, everything that I wanted to cover in this technical reports. So yeah, like I said, a lot more stuff here around like red teaming and security risks and third-party evaluations and stuff. So if you're really interested in that stuff, you can come check it out. But I'm more interested in just like the training methodology and like general eval stuff, and not as much in the safety. So yeah, that's all I'm going to cover today. I appreciate you watching the video, and have a good one.